Hello and welcome back to our study of Romeo and Juliet. We are currently in Act 4, Scene 2. This particular scene takes place in a hall in the Capulets' house. Here we see Capulet, Lady Capulet, and Nurse come in. Let's listen in to learn more.
Lady Capulet, Nurse, and servants.
So many guests invite as here are it.
Exit. First servant.
Sirrah, go hire me 20 cunning cooks.
You shall have none ill, sir, for I'll try if they can lick their fingers.
How canst thou try them so?
Marry, sir, 'tis an ill cook that cannot lick his own fingers. Therefore he that cannot lick his fingers goes not with me.
Go, be gone.
Exit. Second servant.
We shall be much unfurnished for this time. What, is my daughter gone to Friar Lawrence?
Ay, forsooth.
Well, we may chance to do some good on her. A peevish, self-willed harlotry it is.
See where she comes from shrift with merry look.
Enter Juliet.
How now, my headstrong? Where have you been gadding?
Where I have learned me to repent the sin of disobedient opposition to you and your behests, and am enjoined by holy Lawrence to fall prostrate here, to beg your pardon. Pardon, I beseech you. Henceforward I am ever ruled by you.
Send for the county. Go tell him of this. I'll have this knot knit up tomorrow morning.
I met the youthful lord at Lawrence' cell, and gave him what becomed love I might, not stepping o'er the bounds of modesty.
Why, I am glad on't. This is well. Stand up. This is as should be. Let me see the county. Marry, go, I say, and fetch him hither. Now, 'fore God, this reverend holy friar, all our whole city is much bound to him.
Nurse, will you go with me into my closet, to help me sort such needful ornaments as you think fit to furnish me tomorrow?
No, not till Thursday. There is time enough.
Go, nurse, go with her. We'll to church tomorrow.
Exit Juliet and Nurse.
We shall be short in our provision. 'Tis now near night.
Tush, I will stir about, and all things shall be well, I warrant thee, wife. Go thou to Juliet, help to deck up her. I'll not to bed to-night. Let me alone, I'll play the housewife for this once. What? Oh, they are all forth. Well, I will walk myself to County Paris to prepare him up. Against tomorrow my heart is wondrous light, since this same wayward girl is so reclaimed.
Exit. Scene 3.
Let's pause before we continue on reading. This is a very short scene, but if you recall, in the scene before, Juliet has gone to Friar Lawrence for help because she's being forced to marry County Paris. Well, Friar Lawrence says, I've got a solution for you. All you gotta do is drink down this vial, it'll make you seem like you're dead, and then you won't have to get married. Great idea, right? Except for, is it a great idea to fake your own death and make your parents believe that? As a parent, I can tell you, no, never do that. So, we see Capulet and Nurse begin to talk, and Juliet as well. And Juliet says, guess what, Dad? I am so sorry. And I went to Friar Lawrence's cell, and you know what? I beg your pardon. Pardon, I beseech you. And of course, this makes Lord Capulet really happy. If you were to go up to your parents and say, I'm so sorry, I was horrible, I'm so indebted to you. Well, your parents would probably think, okay, all right, we like that. And so Juliet says, yes, I'll marry him. Capulet is so excited by this news that he says, I'm going to get you married even sooner. Let's go tomorrow to church instead of waiting an extra day. And Juliet's like, all right. Lady Capulet thinks it's a little bit rushed, but nonetheless, Lord Capulet goes on with it. He says, I'll play the housewife. I'll do this work. Come on, let's get married tomorrow. Let's have some good, happy times. All right, so let's just go on ahead to scene 3. Here we have Juliet's chamber, and it says, enter Juliet and Nurse. Let's listen in.
Juliet's chamber. Enter Juliet and Nurse.
Ay, those attires are best. But, gentle nurse, I pray thee, leave me to myself to-night, for I have need of many orisons to move the heavens to smile upon my state, which well thou knowest is cross and full of sin.
Enter Lady Capulet.
What? Are you busy, huh? Need you my help?
No, madam, We have called such necessaries as are behoveful for our state tomorrow. So please you, let me now be left alone, and let the nurse this night sit up with you, for I am sure you have your hands full all in this so sudden business.
Good night. Get thee to bed and rest, for thou hast need.
Exit Lady Capulet and nurse.
Farewell. God knows when we shall meet again. I have a faint, cold fear thrills through my veins that almost freezes up the heat of life. I'll call them back again to comfort me. Nurse! What should she do here? My dismal scene I needs must act alone. Come, vial. What if this mixture do not work at all? Shall I be married, then, tomorrow morning? No, no, this shall forbid it. Lie thou there.
Laying down her dagger.
What if it be a poison, which the friar subtly hath ministered to have me dead, lest in this marriage he should be dishonoured, because he married me before to Romeo? I fear it is. And yet methinks it should not, for he hath still been tried a holy man. I will not entertain so bad a thought. How if, when I am laid into the tomb, I wake before the time that Romeo come to redeem me? There's a fearful point. Shall I not then be stifled in the vault, to whose foul mouth no healthsome air breathes in, and there die strangled ere my Romeo comes? Or if I live, is it not very like the horrible conceit of death and night, together with the terror of the place, as in a vault, an ancient receptacle, where for this many 100 years the bones of all my buried ancestors are packed, where bloody Tybalt, yet but green in earth, lies festering in his shroud, where, as they say, at some hours in the night spirits resort. Alack, alack, is it not like that I, so early waking, what with loathsome smells and shrieks like mandrakes torn out of the earth, that living mortals hearing them run mad? Or if I wake, shall I not be distraught, environed with all these hideous fears, and madly play with my forefathers' joints, and pluck the mangled Tybalt from his shroud, and in this rage with some great kinsman's bone, as with a club, dash out my desperate brains? Oh, look! Methinks I see my cousin's ghost seeking out Romeo, that did spit his body upon a rapier's point. Stay, Tybalt, stay! Romeo, I come. This do I drink to thee.
Throws herself on the bed.
All right. So this is another short scene. You'll see that in Act 4 and 5, the scenes are quite short. They just kind of move right along. After those, 1, 2, 3, it's kind of longer. And so we're nearing towards the end of our story. Now, we have Nurse and Juliet and Lady Capulet all together, and they're excited for the wedding, and then everybody leaves, just as Juliet had planned to do with Friar Lawrence. We see then she starts to have this really long speech by herself on the stage. Do you guys remember what we call that kind of speech? When a character is by themselves on the stage and they give a long speech depicting their thoughts? That's right, we call it a soliloquy. All right, so this particular soliloquy reveals a lot of Juliet's inner thoughts. She is scared naturally. I think I would be scared if somebody said, hey, drink this potion and it'll make you seem like you're dead and they're going to bury you. Which, I'll talk about that for a moment. They're not going to actually bury Juliet in, like what we in most of America traditionally do. Though there's all kinds of burials in America as well. But oftentimes, when we think of burial in America, we think of a cemetery plot and people digging 6 feet and putting a coffin down and covering it up. There's actually many different ways to bury people. Obviously, you can be cremated. I lived in New Orleans for a while, and there they have the catacombs, which are above ground, where it looks like almost like a little house that's very fancily decorated, and they put all the family bones in there. That's kind of a different thing, and that has to do with the rising waters whenever it floods. It keeps the bodies from popping out so you don't see your uncle floating down the stream, which would be awful. There are people who get interned in walls There are people who are, like I said, cremated and people put them on their mantle. There's all kinds of ways to be buried. But here, Juliet would have been laid out in her family tomb, which we would assume it's kind of like a big room where there might be some platforms and there'd be like dead bodies laying on them, which have in various forms of decomposition, and the bodies would be laid out there. It's kind of weird, but that's how they did it a lot back then. So Juliet would wake up, and who might she see there in her own family tomb? Well, who in her family just died? Her cousin Tybalt. So that would be really scary to know that you're going to drink this potion up, and then you're going to wake up, and you might see your dead cousin there that just died a couple days ago, already starting to decompose, and see all your dead family relatives. And what if she doesn't wake up at all? She also has that kind of fear. What if she wakes up, she claims that, what if, Friar Lawrence is just doing this to kill her off because he doesn't want the dishonor of her being married before to Romeo. So she thinks, maybe he's trying to kill me. She also has the fears, okay, what if I do wake up? And then she says, to whose foul mouth no wholesome air breathes in. She's talking about the tomb here. And there die strangled ere my Romeo comes. Or if I live, and it not very, very like the horrible conceit of death and night, together with the terror of this place, as in a vault, an ancient receptacle. And he says, where for many hundred years the bones of all my buried ancestors are packed, where bloody Tybalt yet with but green in the earth lies festering in his shroud. A shroud is like a cloth they would have laid over the body. Whereas they say at some hours in the night spirits resort, alack, alack, it is not like I, so early waking with what some loathsome smells, and shrieks like mandrakes torn out of the earth. She says, what if she wakes up and she smells all these dead bodies and she sees them and it's just gross? Which it would be, probably. She says, in these hideous fears, what if she goes mad and she plays with her forefathers' drums? Maybe waking up with all these dead bodies, she's going to go crazy. She'll be playing with the bodies of her family members, playing madly with their forefingers' joints, and maybe she'll pluck Tybalt from his shroud. And she might even, in this rage, take some kinsman's bone and use it as a club to dash out her own desperate brains. That is quite the image, right? She goes so crazy from seeing all this death around her that she kills herself by bashing her own head in. It's a pretty gruesome depiction. And then at the end, we kind of see that Juliet is like losing her sense on reality, because she says, methinks I see my cousin's ghost seeking out Romeo that it spit on his body. So she's kind of seeing Tybalt now. And she's saying, Tybalt, I'm coming, stay there. And Romeo, she says, I drink to thee, and then collapses. So really, if you were watching this originally, you might think maybe she's dead, or maybe she'll wake up, or maybe she is going to go mad. You don't really know either. We know kind of, if you are a little bit familiar with the story, but really, what is going to happen? And I urge you to think about, as a 14-year-old girl, how much courage she had to do this. But also, is this really great advice from Friar Lawrence? It seems like he's kind of gives good advice, but at the other toss of the coin, he gives terrible advice, right? So which is it? I'm curious to hear what you have to think about that. I hope that this has been helpful for you, and that you tune in to learn about scene 4, because you guessed it, they find Juliet dead on the bed, or I should say dead in air quotes, because she's not really dead. Right? She's taking this sleeping potion that appears to give her death. And as you can imagine, the family is really distraught. All right, well, tune in again, and thanks for listening. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.